Hello, and welcome to 5-Minute Math. Today we are looking at the 6th grade concept of converting units. This is 6.4H Readiness Practice, the advanced version. If you're interested in exploring the 6.4H Readiness Practice for the intermediate or proficient versions, or the Readiness Practice resource line with any other standard, you can find those by using the link in the video description. All right, so we've got factory that can produce 2,500 milliliters, I'll have that as my abbreviation, per minute. And if we run for 8 hours, how many liters will that produce? Well, let's first get this minute into hours. All right, so I've got 60 minutes in 1 hour. Okay, so if I multiply both numerator and my denominator, and really this is over 1 minute, right? Then let's multiply this. 2,500 times 60. And we are going to get 0, 0, 30, 12, 15. All right, lots of zeros. All right, so 150,000 per 60 minutes. Let's see, milliliters for 60 minutes. But we know that 60 minutes is 1 hour. So let's just change that to 1 hour. All right, so now I've got my unit rate per hour. All right, so I needed that by 8 hours. Okay, so 8. So let's take that. We're going to multiply this by 8. And that's a lot of zeros. That's 40. And that's 12. So it looks like 1 million. All right, so I've got 1,200,000 for 8 hours. Now we're close. I've got my 8 hours. I need liters. All right, so I need to know that 1 liter equals 1,000 milliliters. So I need to take 1,000 chunks of these and convert them into liters. So I'm going to basically divide my 1,200,000. See, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. Want to count your zeros there. I need to divide that by 1,000. Okay. So there's two different ways you can do it. If we want to do it with long division, it's a little bit wonky, but we can do that because 1,000 goes into the first 4 digits, right? Once, and that's going to go in twice, and then we're just left with zeros. So we just can add 2 zeros here, 1,200, or we can realize if when we divide by 1,000, we just end up taking our decimal, and we're going to move it in 3 zeros. I'm going to move it in 3 spots. 1, 2, 3, and look what I'm left with, 1,200. So how many liters of solution will it produce? It's going to be 1,200 liters. And let's definitely put a green box around that. All right, next we've got a smoothie shop and 12 fluid ounces to make 1 serving, and I've got 5 gallons. How many servings can I make? Well, I need to convert my fluid ounces into gallons. Now, here's the thing. It takes 8, I'm just going to kind of go up. 8 fluid ounces makes 1 cup. All right, so if I've got 12 fluid ounces, well, 8 ounces is going to get me 1 cup, right? So that's going to be 1 cup, and I've got 4 fluid ounces left. So I'm going to have 1 cup, 4 fluid ounces, but that 4 fluid ounces is really half of what I need. So I'm going to say this 12 fluid ounces, right, is going to equal 1.5 cups, okay? So every serving of smoothie gets me 1.5 cups. Now I can keep moving that up, and I can figure out how many pints and how many quarts that makes. But honestly, since we're getting smaller and smaller, it might be easier to go from this gallons and move this down into the fluid ounces. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go from that end, and let's say 1 gallon equals 4 quarts. Okay, so if 1 gallon equals 4 quarts, I'm going to kind of take it this way. So you could do this, but then you'd have a really small decimal, and then you'd have to figure out what that is by multiplying it by the number of fluid ounces in a gallon. Let's take my 5 gallons, and I'm going to multiply it by 4, because that's 4 quarts in gallons. That is going to equal 20 quarts. Now, 1 quart equals 2 pints. So now I'm going to multiply this by 2 to get 40 pints. So 5 gallons is worth 40 pints. And now I've got my 1 pint equals 2 cups. So I'm going to multiply this by 2, and I'm going to get my 80 cups. All right, so now I could use this. I need 1.5 cups for every smoothie. I've got 80 cups. So how many 1.5 cups can I get from 80? That's going to be division. So let's divide 1.5 into 80. Now when we divide, if we have a decimal in the divisor, what we do is we multiply both by 10. So I'm going to move that decimal over. I'm going to move that decimal over. It's going to be 15 into 800. 15 goes into 85 times. That's 75. And that's going to be 5, and that's a 0. So that's going to be 3. That's 45. And that's going to be a 5. And look what's going to end up happening. It's going to be a 0. 45. We're going to have this endless set of 3. 53.3 repeating, or 53 and 1/3. Now, let's interpret this in the context here. The large shop is not going to make 1/3 of 1. So we'll just say 53 full smoothies. We're just not going to count that last 1/3. That's how many we can make. Now for our third problem, we have a recipe that calls for 2.5 kilograms, but we have a scale that only measures in grams. So how many grams do we need? Well, 1 kilogram equals 1,000 grams. So if I've got 2.5 kilograms, then I'm going to multiply that by 1,000. Now I could multiply by 1,000, but we know when we multiply by 1,000, we move the decimal over once for each 0. 1, 2, 3. So think of it like 2.5 is going to be 1, 2, 3. I've got the decimal there, so I have to move it over once to make it 25. So that's going to equal 2,500 grams. All right, so each bag of flour contains 500 grams and costs 250. How much will he spend on flour? Well, if I need 2,500 grams, and I've got bags of flour that have 500 grams, so I'm going to divide this 500 into my 2,500, and some of you can probably do this in your head. That's just going to be 5, because that 500 goes into 2,500 5 times. That's 25, and then your 2 zeros. All right, so I need 5 bags. So I've got my 5 bags. I'm going to multiply that by the cost, $2.75 each. And then that's going to be 5. That's going to be 35.37. And that's going to be 10.13. All right, so there we go. How much will he spend on flour? So first, let's put my answer here, 2,500 grams. And I'm going to spend $13.75 on flour. If you are interested in exploring the 6.4H readiness practice for the intermediate or proficient version, or the readiness practice resource along with any other standard, you can find those by using the link in the video description.